If you search for Afghanistan on YouTube right now, you will find a growing wave of travel vloggers documenting an experience that feels deeply disconnected from reality. They are greeted with overwhelming kindness in a country the United Nations classifies as the world's most severe human rights crisis. In local bazaars, tourists are invited into quiet shops by men pouring tea and sharing meals, extending immense warmth and hospitality to complete strangers. 5 years after the chaotic end of the war, the Taliban has managed to project an image of stability. For a foreign visitor passing through checkpoints, the streets can feel safe and highly orderly. It is a stark contrast to exactly 5 years prior, when thousands of desperate civilians rushed military transport planes to escape the advancing regime. This leaves us with a jarring paradox. A country can be experienced by outsiders as a welcoming travel destination, while simultaneously operating as a totalitarian state. But the sense of calm that visitors film on their cameras is built on a massive demographic omission. Look closely at this market. It is almost entirely male. The few women who are present are required to wear full body coverings, carefully navigating a public sphere that no longer belongs to them. Having secured their military victory, the Taliban shifted into a functioning administration that now makes the systematic erasure of women its primary bureaucratic focus. To understand modern Afghanistan, you have to look past the friendly shopkeepers and examine the bureaucratic machine actively silencing half of the nation's population. The men who spent 20 years hiding in the mountains and running shadow insurgencies have now unmasked themselves to step into official government offices. This is Zabihullah Mujahid, the Taliban's chief spokesman. For years, he operated in secret, claiming responsibility for deadly bombings. Now he sits openly at state microphones, directing the country's public relations. Men who previously commanded suicide attackers are now appointed as regional prison bosses and receive public awards for their service at tribal gatherings. They no longer need to enforce their extremist ideology through guerrilla warfare. They do it from desks, issuing administrative paperwork, permits, and official decrees. The regime hasn't moderated its views to govern. It has simply weaponized the infrastructure of the state to enforce them. The United Nations and international human rights organizations have a specific legal term for this system of governance: gender apartheid. Over the past 5 years, the de facto administration has issued more than 100 specific, highly restrictive edicts targeting women. Afghanistan is now the only country in the world that formally bans girls from attending secondary schools and universities. By late 2024, they cut off medical training, barring women from studying nursing and midwifery. Women are legally barred from working in most civil service jobs. They cannot enter public parks. They cannot travel more than 72 kilometers without a male guardian. A recent decree even prohibits women from speaking audibly in public spaces. These are not random, isolated rules enforced by rogue local commanders. This is a highly coordinated, institutionalized effort by the national government to completely remove women from the visible world. We can see how this bureaucracy operates in practice through a single local courtroom. An 18-year-old woman recently came before a regional governor, begging for a divorce from a severely abusive husband. Under the regime's interpretation of religious law, a woman initiating a divorce often requires the husband's consent and financial repayment. Her abuser demanded an impossible $30,000 to let her go. The official overseeing this case is Governor Abdullah Hadi. Before ruling on domestic disputes, he was an insurgent who spent years as an inmate at Guantanamo Bay. The governor denied the young woman's request for a divorce. He ordered her to stay married, remarking that women who go to school become brazen and say things that stun men. This single courtroom interaction captures the reality of the Taliban's legal framework. It is a state run exclusively by men, explicitly designed to control every aspect of a woman's life. You cannot legally erase half of your country's workforce from existence without triggering a massive macroeconomic collapse. This chart visualizes female labor force participation. Before the takeover, 1 in 6 women worked. Today, that has plummeted to 1 in 20. The UN estimates this costs $84 million annually, projecting GDP to shrink by 2/3 by 2066. The human cost of this economic failure is staggering. Today, nearly 22 million people, roughly 45% of the entire population, require urgent humanitarian assistance just to survive. The facade of a peaceful, orderly society that tourists see in the markets is masking an economy in freefall and a starving population. But Afghan women are not responding to this oppression with surrender. Instead, they have moved their resistance entirely underground. At immense personal risk, women operate secret homeschools for girls. They use virtual private networks to access online university courses, and they run covert aid networks to feed female-headed households. While the regime projects a unified, entirely male-dominated image to the outside world, a second, hidden Afghanistan exists just out of sight. 5 years in, the Taliban have traded guerrilla warfare for a formal bureaucracy dedicated to enforcing extremism. But the true state of Afghanistan is found in the women enduring and resisting this system from the shadows.